Welcome back to Regular Guys Outdoors. I'm Chris. This is mainly going to be a review of the Thompson Center Venture rifle. We're going to talk about the scope that I chose to put on here, but we'll get to that later. First up, the rifle. As you can see here, where the rifle is clear, the features of this particular one are it is blued action, blued barrel, synthetic stock. The synthetic stock has these rubberized inserts right here that really allow you to get a really good purchase on the gun. They're very sticky, so that's a pretty nice feature. The barrel is 24 inches, and that is also a nice feature because it's going to allow your long action cartridges to get the most oomph on them versus the 22-inch barrels that are out there. That's just nitpicking. The 22-inch barrel is plenty fine. It's going to do everything you need it to do. Some of the features as to why I picked this one, well, one, it is supposed to give you MOA accuracy, which is approximately 1 inch at 100 yards. So that's a pretty bold claim considering some people don't shoot very well. Additionally, other things I liked about it is it has the safety mechanism right here in what I like to call the Remington position. I like it right there. Remington 700s are right here. The Weatherby rifles are right here. The newer Winchester rifle, and I forget the name of that, XPR, is right here. My Marlin rifle is right here. I just like them right there. It's a nice ergonomic spot for me as a right-handed shooter. The second feature I really liked, and this is my preferred method for feeding cartridges into the rifle on a bolt action, is the detachable magazine. This particular one is a single stack, and it's very slim and trim. Look at it next to my finger. It is slim and trim. It holds 3 rounds, so you could put 3 in, lock and load, pull it out, put another one in. Now you got 3 plus 1 in the rifle, and that should take care of all your needs right there. The bolt comes out, and the bolt is a very stout unit here. Notice the 3 locking lugs. That gives you a 60-degree throw on the bolt. So when you have your rifle and your scope on top, you're only coming up 60 degrees versus the normal 90, and so you can get away with a slightly larger bell housing on the back end of your scope without the bolt running into it. So a 60-degree throw is a nice feature to have. So like I said, the safety position is right here where the Remington 700s are, and it's a positive lock. It does not, however, lock the bolt. So with the safety on, you can still manipulate the bolt, which isn't a bad thing because now you can leave the safety off or safety on when it's time to unload the rifle. You simply drop your magazine, catch your shell, and bam, there you go. You're unloaded and you never took your rifle off safe. The flip side to that is it can, if you got it slung over your shoulder on a sling, you could potentially accidentally open the bolt, have it come open, and eject that shell out while you're walking through the woods. However, you would still have 2 or 3 more in your magazine, so that's not that big of a deal. And you really ought to be paying attention to your rifle a lot while you're walking anyways, so that's not a big deal. Several of my other bolt action rifles also do the same thing where it does not lock the bolt, but that's the feature on this particular rifle. So let's talk about the cartridge I chose. I chose the chambering of 280 Remington, mostly because I didn't have one. I'm a big fan of cases and cartridges based off of the 30-06. I did an article that's on our website about cartridges based on the 30-06, like the 25-06 270 Winchester, which is a very big favorite of mine, and of course the 280 Remington. Now the 280 Remington is a 7mm, and at one point in time was called the 7mm Express Remington, which of course created confusion with the 7mm Remington Magnum. So 280 Remington is its final name. Now there's not a ton of factory loads out there for it, but they are out there. They usually cost the same as your 270 and your 30-06 cartridges. So availability, while a little bit limited, it's still out there in plenty of factory loadings. I hand load, so that's not as much of a concern for me, but it is something to think about. And the 7mm bullet, if you're a hand loader, there are a ton of choices and options for the hand loader as far as bullet choice goes. You could shoot really lightweight bullets for varmints and predators and stuff like that, and you can go way up in bullet weight for really big game like your elk and moose and caribou and stuff like that. The other reason I chose this chambering is because this now rounds out the 4 main cartridges based off the 30-06 for me. So now I've got the 25-06, the 270, the 280, and the 30-06. Maybe I need a 35 Whelen next. I don't know. So now let's talk about the scope that I chose for this rifle. The scope I chose is the Vortex Diamondback 4-12x40. And it has the dead hold BDC reticle. Now I chose that specifically for a reason. One, I have this exact same scope model already on my Savage B-Mag, and I love to shoot prairie dogs with it. And one of the things I like about it is only a 40mm, so it's a standard scope size. It's not a big old monster objective. There is no side focus, there's no adjustable objective, there's no focus knobs, but you still got 12 power. It also has a reasonably good field of view for 4 power. So if you're in the woods and you're on 4 power, it's not like you're looking down a toilet paper roll in the woods. It still has enough field of view that you can distinguish what part, say, of the deer you're looking at. Because a deer at 40 yards, if you're zoomed in too tight, all you see is hair. What part are you on? But on 4 power, you still got a good field of view and you can determine what is what on the deer, you know. So let's open this bad boy and take a quick look at it. So it comes with your lens cloth, your manual, and the scope itself has some see-through scope covers, which is always nice to have. So you've got see-through scope covers, amber color in the back here, and that's always nice to have. But it's a nice, small, trim, no bigger than your average 3 to 9x40 scope, no heavier, no lighter. So let's talk about the reticle. So the reticle happens to match perfectly the ballistics of the cartridge I want to use. Now this is a factory loading from Winchester, and it's the ballistic silver tip. I plan on reloading this same bullet when I'm done with these shells. But what is interesting is that the ballistics table on this matches exactly the correlation of the bullet drop compensator crosshairs in here. Let me show you on these illustrations here. You see how they match a 200-yard zero, and the 4, 5, and 600 line up almost perfectly? The 300 does not. But that's no big deal, because if you zero at 200 yards, your bullet drop is going to be about 7 inches for 300 yards. Now, that's simply aiming high on a deer, high on a pronghorn, up around the spine area, top of the spine, just right on the edge of the back strap right here. Just aim there, it'll drop in right where you want. Now the 4, 5, and 600 yard lines, that's assuming one can shoot that well, and assuming the rifle and cartridge shoot that well. The biggest factor there is going to be wind. If there's a little bit of wind, you start talking about bullet drifting way off at those distances. So I don't plan on shooting 400 and 500 yards, but I will at least know my drop if I need to do so. And I'm not going to do so until I do so on a range and know that the crosshair indeed does match the ballistics of the cartridge. Because sometimes these can be, maybe you got a slow barrel and it just isn't running as fast as this ballistics table says. Well, in that case, it's not going to quite match. So you've got to verify all these variables. And then the wind just adds an entire dimension that you need to know before you take a shot at long distance at an animal. I've got the scope all mounted up, and a couple things I almost forgot. Show you the barrel. The barrel is free floated all the way up. It's a little bit stiff as you get toward the receiver here, but it's free floated. And let's check out the trigger pull. Right at 5 pounds. So we got a 5-pound trigger. There's very little creep in it, and it breaks and has extremely little over travel. It feels really nice, really nice. Another thing is the stock is pretty stiff, considering I felt some really chintzy, flimsy stocks in the past, but it does move, but you really got to put some pressure on it. So what that's going to do is, so long as you're not putting excessive sideways pressure on the stock, you're not going to get barrel to stock contact and mess up your shot. So that's all well and good, and it has the potential to shoot well, but let's get it out on the range and see how it does. Today I'm up here in the mountains, and I've got a target at 50 yards right back there. And today I'm just going to shoot 4 rounds. At 50 yards, I kind of want this to be about a ½ inch high at 50 yards. So I'm going to try to shoot 2 out of this box, 2 out of this box, and then that'll leave me 18 in each, which is 6 groups of 3 that hopefully I can get a good 0 with at 200 yards. Because when I go to the range next, I want to go straight to the 100-yard mark and bypass all the fiddling around. So I've already bore sighted this rifle, and so I just want to kind of get tuned in here. So we're going to do 2 out of each box, and since this is the first rounds out of this rifle, I just wanted to show you these first 4 shots. Low. I'm not sure. I'm going to have to go look. Still low. And you got to account for being only hit 50 yards. Each click is only going to be 1/8 of an inch instead of 1/4 inch. Don't forget to do this. That's very loud. So I'm low and left. Alright, next time we shoot that, we'll be at the 100-yard mark. Well, I finally got to the range with the TC Venture here in 280. I started shooting at 100 yards and I could tell I'm a bit rusty. I wasn't doing very well. The two guns I had, I was alternating shooting the two between a 25-06 I got and this 280 Remington, and neither of them were shooting very good at 100, but I started getting the adjustments down pretty good for 100. Then I went to 200 yards, and that's where things got awesome. Let me show you the target. Alright, so here's the target, and remember, we're shooting the Winchester ballistic tip, ballistic silver tip, and the Trophy Copper by Federal. They're both 140 grains. They're supposed to have very similar trajectories and all that jazz. So when I first shot my first 200-yard group, I hit those two right there. They're almost touching. And the third one must have just went off, just off of the paper. So then I adjusted the scope and I shot another group, and I shot here. Now I threw this one, and I knew I threw this one, but even still, this is 200 yards. So these three that I know I shot well are in a 1.5. Including that one, I'm at 2.5 inches. So that is still nothing to sneeze at, even at 200 yards. So then I shot the Trophy Copper, the TC. That's Trophy Copper, not Thompson Center. And this group is just a shade over an inch. And I'll say that the Trophy Copper seems like it shoots to the right a little bit over the ballistic tip. So if you're zeroed with the ballistic tip, Trophy Copper for me is off to the right just a little bit, and I'll show you exactly what I mean here in a minute. So I'm fine-tuning the scope and everything here at 200 yards. And remember, 200 yards, every click you do is double what it says on the scope, because you're at 200 yards, not 100, and most scopes are calculated for 100. So right here we got ballistic tip at 2.33, still a little high at 200. And then this is about the time I had to literally run down range, grab my target, and scoot it over one, because a bunch of guys showed up and I was actually one over from where I should be. So their 100-yard target had mine directly behind it, and I would have got full of holes. So I ran down and ran back, and I should have waited longer, but I said this would be a good opportunity to see how I do. And I shot this terrible group here, and even still it's 3.2, so that would translate to about 1.6 inches at 100 yards, which isn't necessarily that good, but it's not that far off par of an average rifle anyway. So then we got this Trophy Copper here at 1.5 inches. Boom, boom, boom. Trophy Copper. That's 200 yards now. Remember, 200 yards. So that's 3/4 of an inch at 100. Then I fine-tuned my scope, and I've got this 1.1 with the ballistic tip ammo. So that's just over a 1/2 inch at 100 yards. So then I shot this group. Remember I said I was rusty? The guy next to me shot right as before I was about to shoot, and I actually flinched when he shot, and I threw this one out about shot number 2 or 3. So I had to shoot a 4th shot in this group. So that being said, my 3 shots that I shot normal with the Trophy Copper, and like I said, I didn't adjust from here to here the scope. So I'm off to the right a little bit, and maybe even slightly high. I might shoot slightly high right versus the ballistic tip. Even still, a 2.6 inch group at 200 yards with the flyer that I know I did. I know I flinched when the guy shot, but without that shot, we're looking at 1.24. So to me, as far as which ammo is more accurate, I don't know. They're both shooting really good. So I would just decide, to me, this would be a better deer and pronghorn load, maybe even black bear. And this one, seeing as how it's all copper, would be a better elk type load. So right now, digging the TC and 280 Remington, and I'll probably end up hand loading for it down the road. So now at this point, I've actually gone hunting with this, and I haven't used a sling. And there's a couple things I've found out that I really like, and one thing I'm not crazy about with the shooting and running around with it. So far, the stock, it is svelte. It is very nice to carry. It's like I said earlier, it's fairly stiff. These rubber inserts along here really give you a nice tactile something to hold on to. It's not trying to slip out of your hand, especially when you got gloves on. It's not trying to slip out of your gloves. I love that. I love the fact that the ejection port is small and there's actually solid up top. That helps with debris getting in. I got rained on just a little bit while hunting. You don't have rain going right down in there and down into your magazine, down into your ammo. So that's also very awesome. The only thing I really don't like, that 5-pound trigger or so I think we had, the trigger is slightly, the face of it's slightly rounded, and so it makes it feel a little thin and heavier than it is. So I think what I'll do is I'll end up adjusting the trigger pull, and that's just simply taking the one particular screw, go counterclockwise to loosen and make it better. Now this scope, when it is legal shooting light but overcast, first thing in the morning or the last thing in the evening, this scope's clarity and brightness is really awesome at this price point. I can't emphasize that enough. I'm looking at things, the mule deer in the field at night, I looked at them through this, and I'm having a hard time making them out, especially if they don't move or one of the dark ones is in a dark spot. I can't see them as well with my naked eye, and they're at 150, 200 yards. I put this on them, and it's extremely bright considering. So that's a good thing as far as that goes, especially if it's going to be overcast at the beginning or end of the day, or say it's overcast and you're in the woods and the leaves haven't fallen yet. You're going to be fairly dark in there a while till the sun really gets up higher and it just gets brighter. But that those overcast days, this scope, I tell you what, for the 200 or so bucks this scope costs, it's worth it. It's my second one and might not be my last. So I've rambled enough, and this baby's going to go on me. I think I've got 2 more whitetail doe hunting trips in Colorado that this is going to go with me. I hope to get one down with it just to say I did. Hope you liked this video, and if you did, please give us a subscribe. We could sure use some more. And as always, thanks for watching.